Trump administration officials are floating the idea that President Trump could go to around Congress and cut taxes on his own. The goal would be to adjust taxes on capital gains for inflation. The goal is 100 billion in tax cuts. What say you, Cody?
Look, number one, I guess it's not technically Trump that's going to try to bypass Congress. It's the Treasury Department under Trump's administration, which I get. Okay, so it's all the same thing. So, yes, let's just step back. Capital gains taxes is what happens when you own something, typically for a while, and it goes up a bunch. So if you bought something, you'll hear the people that are trying to sell this to you as a main street working class tax cut. They'll say, well, people who bought something at $10,000 and are selling it at $50,000 won't have to pay as much in taxes, because typically what you would do is you take the $10,000 from the $50,000, therefore you have $40,000 in profits, and that's what you pay taxes on, what you paid versus what you sold it for. So that's the problem, is that's not really who this is going to be about. It's not a $10,000 to $60,000 investment. This is going to help multi-millionaires, 100-millionaires, billionaires, and especially giant corporations who invest in something for $10 million and sell it for $100 million or $1 billion. And what they're going to do is what this balloon was floated is trying to do, what they say they want to do is add inflation costs to what your actual price was. So that if there's the logic being that if inflation was 10% per year and your asset went up 10% per year, you're actually no better off. The problem with all of this is that who's measuring inflation? Where are those numbers going to come from? You're going to end up with two government measurements of inflation. One will be the official what they're measuring when they ISM and looking at the economic numbers and what the actual prices paid for producers, for consumers are. And they're going to try to keep that number as low as possible as they measure it. And they'll do as many exemptions and tricks to measuring that stuff to keep those numbers low, to tell everybody that, look, inflation is low. But on the other hand, they're going to have a different inflation number that they will use for capital gains taxes for corporations and billionaires. So what this is yet again, a targeted tax trick for wealthy people. Now, before we pretend that the Democrats would be any better, it's incredible the hypocrisy to listen to any Democrat sit up there today and talk about this being yet another giveaway to giant corporations and welfare, when every single bill that Pelosi or Obama or anyone else has ever passed has exactly been a giveaway to giant corporations and the wealthy. Democrats have never done anything for poor people or the middle class either. It's all been targeted tax tricks for wealthy and giant corporations. Obamacare was a giveaway to giant healthcare corporations. I've got a simple solution for all of this. Look, if you Republicans and Democrats, the Republican Democrat regime, want to do targeted tax cuts, you have to simultaneously cut subsidies and welfare programs for that same sector. So if you're going to cut taxes for people who have lots of capital gains and lots of wealth and billionaires and giant corporations, you have to cut just as much pork, subsidies, targeted welfare for those same sectors if you're going to give them a tax cut. The further you give subsidies and welfare to these giant corporations and billionaires and simultaneously cut their tax obligations, you're going to gut out the middle class in rural America. And that's exactly what's been happening for a long time. I think I've been going on this for way too long. The final question is this: if none of this has to go through Congress anymore, then are we already stepping towards a complete dictatorship? Because is one administration going to be able to decide what the tax code is?
To watch the entire episode, just Google The Cody Willard Show Episode 4.